Listen, if you look back in your family and you see cycles of dysfunction, addiction, abuse, divorce, financial ruin, catastrophes, accidents, and something in your spirit says, this is not right. This is a pattern that goes beyond the normal. You're probably right. And I want you to pay attention over the next few minutes. My name is Darian Claxton, and this is day 30 of sharing nuggets from my new devotional on spiritual warfare in the Bending Bows of Bronze series entitled Subdue the Enemy Under Your Feet. A few days ago, we scratched the surface with generational curses, but I want to dive deeper into this by telling you a story about a young man who we call Ernesto, who I spent hours with several years ago talking to his parents, who were distraught that he had delved into a life of drugs and witchcraft and illicit behavior. They thought this was an overnight change. But after I spent some time with Ernesto, I realized that what seemed sudden for them was merely the bubbling over of spiritual wounds that he'd always had. He had the ability to actually see and hear demons, which from my experience, 9 times out of 10 is a spiritual wound that existed from childbirth, meaning it was passed on to him. I would invite him to come to church, and his ability to go was basically dependent on if the demons allowed him to go or not. They'd knock him down in the shower. They'd keep him pressed into his bed. They would be so loud, their voices in his head, until he'd just give up the idea. Or on rare occasions, I would pray with him and he would push through and he would make it. Now, of course, if he wanted to get high or go out with questionable friends, or he wanted to practice some spells that he was using in hopes of getting a girlfriend, they had no problem. They let him be. But every time he wanted to read the word, he wanted to talk about the Bible, he wanted to be around believers, they would just give him no rest whatsoever. Speaking to his mother, she admitted that his family was heavy into Santeria. This is a hybrid religion that involves divination, involves sacrifices, communicating with spirits to receive healing and protection and success. And even though his immediate family was not practicing Santeria, the sins of his ancestors were having a devastating impact on him. Now, he'd go to these deliverance ministers, get the demons cast out of him, but because the root was never addressed, as we talked about a few days ago, his house was vacant. This is Christ's principle from Matthew 12, and the demons would come back stronger than before. The key to deliverance for individuals like Ernesto, anybody who is battling generational curses, is, as we keep saying throughout this series, not treating symptoms, but rather addressing the root and ensuring that the Holy Spirit takes up residence so that when the demons try to come back, they see nothing but no vacancy signs when they try to return. See, Satan is nothing but a counterfeiting punk. He's a coward. All he can do is copy what he sees God do. Isaiah 14, we see that he wanted to be like the Most High God. Well, one of the qualities of God is his omnipresence. Even though when you turn on the news, it looks like Satan and his imps are everywhere, he is not omnipresent. So what does the enemy do to try to emulate, to try to counterfeit God's omnipresence? He sets up systems which are based on spiritual principles that came into existence as a result of sin. God said in the second commandment that I will visit the iniquities of the fathers to the 3rd and 4th generation. So when you think of yourself, 4 generations is 30 individuals. That's your parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, all the way up. Any one of those individuals could have engaged in something, could have spoke some curses, could have done something unbecoming, and it have an impact. But thankfully, the next part of that text is equally, if not more relevant. He says, I will show mercy to 1,000 generations who love me and obey my commandments. So when we stop dismissing symptoms as just how things are in our family, and be intentional about breaking legal agreements in the spirit realm, then we stop these cycles of oppression. Satan can't just sit back and let these systems perpetuate while he does his thing elsewhere. But as long as they're in place, even though each person has a choice, when there is a generational curse, for example, of alcoholism, you will find the people who are in that line, they are far more susceptible. So they just can't take one innocent sip. It can turn into a full-blown addiction because of that generational proclivity. In day 30, we go a whole lot deeper into breaking generational curses, dealing with enchanted ground and some other open doors that allow demonic entities into our bloodlines and how we can systematically revoke them. But I want to leave you with one of the marching orders from day 30, and that is confessing ancestral sins in the we. That means that even if you did not commit a sin yourself, you are confessing them. This is corporate forgiveness and is a key to breaking the cycle of iniquities that are perpetuated. This is especially useful if you're able to hear and speak to some of your family members about some things that have happened in the past. You pull out Ezra chapter 9 and Nehemiah chapter 9 and Daniel chapter 9 and see how they interceded on behalf of their people by confessing the sins of their ancestors that they were not involved in, but yet was having an adverse effect. Every vow, every ritual, every addiction, every sin that God brings to your mind or that you can have a conversation with someone about, you renounce it and you declare Jesus' blood as your legal payment. We don't have to pay anything. We don't have to appease God. That's Satan's principle of transactionality. The debt has already been paid. The freedom is already ours for the asking. If you want instant access to the first 3 chapters of this book, I want you to put in the comments, cancel the debt, and I will get this in your hands. And if you haven't yet started this 31-day journey, go on over to bendingbowsofbronze.com, grab your copy of the book, either in paperback or audiobook format. If you have this book but don't have any of the other books in this series, you can get them at the same site. And tomorrow, our last day in this series, you won't want to miss how this story ends. I'll see you then.